Hi everyone, Dr. Kelli-an Lawrence here, welcoming you to this mini lecture about stage 1 of the health communication process. You recall from the previous lesson that planning an effective health communication campaign includes these 7 steps. Step 1, assess the health issue to build a comprehensive understanding of it and to identify all the components of a possible solution beyond just a communication campaign. Step 2, establish the expected outcomes of the campaign. Step 3, define and develop an in-depth understanding of the target audience. Step 4, determine which communication channels and messages are best for reaching that audience. Step 5, identify potential partners. Step 6, develop a creative brief. And finally, Step 7, draft an evaluation plan in preparation for assessing success of the communication campaign. The previous lesson looked at the first 3 steps of the planning process. We gained a comprehensive understanding of the health issue using a community health needs assessment and possibly a SWOT analysis. We established the outcomes we expect the communication campaign to achieve, being sure to state what it would achieve, with whom, and by when. And finally, we developed an in-depth, insightful understanding of the specific audience segment the health communication campaign would target. In this mini lecture, we'll pick up at step 4 and then take a quick look at each of the remaining steps. So let's get started. Step 4. Determine which communication channels and messages are best for reaching the target audience. This step is all about identifying the settings, the times, places, and states of mind in which the target audience is most receptive to and able to act upon the message. It's about identifying the communication channels through which messages can be delivered. And finally, it's all about thinking about the specific materials and activities that can be used to deliver the messages in those channels, in those settings. When you are identifying the settings, you should be thinking about the times, places, and states of mind in which members of the target audience are most receptive to the message and most able to act on it. Would that be at home, school, work, maybe in the car, on the bus, or maybe at a community event or in a health clinic? When you are identifying what communication channels would be best for reaching your target audience, consider that interactive digital media platforms provide tailored messages to individuals. Mass media channels deliver generic messages to entire communities. And interpersonal communication allows for human-to-human exchange of messages. Also keep in mind that anyone can communicate on digital media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, X, YouTube, Reddit, Snapchat, everything. This means the accuracy of messages is unknown. Some people believe everything they consume. Some people believe nothing. Reputable organizations need to clearly demonstrate the credibility and the authenticity of their messages. In more operational terms, it's also important to take into account that people use a variety of devices to consume digital media. Incompatibility across devices can make the message less dependable, less appealing, and less effective. Finally, when you're thinking about specific materials and activities that can be used to deliver messages in the many channels available, recognize that using multiple channels maximizes the reach of the communication campaign by increasing repetition of the message. This improves the likelihood of the target audience receiving the message often enough to absorb and act on it. The reading describes some evidence-informed practices in health communication. Please read about these as well as the pros and cons of various channels. This moves us to step 5 of the planning process, identify potential partners. Please read about this in the assigned readings. It's very straightforward. Step 6 in the planning process is develop a creative brief. Let me explain what this means. At this point in the planning process, you have a deep insight into exactly who the target audience is. Your expected outcomes for the communication campaign have been established. Settings, channels, materials, and activities that will best reach the target audience have been determined, and decisions about partnering have been made and acted on. Now is the time to use all of this background work as the basis for developing a creative brief. To understand what a creative brief is, think about the fact that communication campaigns usually include multiple messages created by numerous people involved in the project, released through various channels like video, printed handouts, in-person events, social media posts, and so on. The creative brief ensures everything and everyone is guided by the same strategy towards the same goal. The creative brief shows how the communication campaign will influence a target audience to take a particular health-related action. Once the creative brief is developed, it is vital to always adhere to that creative brief, ensuring all elements of the campaign are compatible with it. Every aspect of the communication campaign should be aimed at supporting the target audience to achieve the expected outcomes that have been established. Changes to the creative brief should occur only if new information about the target audience emerges, pointing to ways to enhance the success of the campaign. The reading describes how to develop all 7 sections of a creative brief. Please be sure to go over this information very carefully. And with that, we're at the final step of the planning process. Step 7, draft an evaluation plan in preparation for assessing success. Here you create an outcome evaluation plan to assess whether the expected outcomes of the communication campaign were achieved. Notice that a cause-effect relationship is assumed. We're imagining that the communication campaign caused members of the target audience to make certain changes in their health behavior. In reality, it's usually impossible to isolate the effects of a communication campaign on an audience. The campaign happens in the real world, where many things besides the campaign could be influencing the target audience to make changes. It can be difficult to measure change. That's because change may be very small or very gradual. Imagine, for example, that just 2% of a population changed. A research sample of 500 people would include just 10 people who made the change. But in a community of 50,000 people, that's 1,000 people who changed. Imagine 1,000 more people doing an important health behavior. Even though it's hard to capture the change in the outcome evaluation study, it really does exist. Of course, there are also challenges with self-report. To evaluate whether a communication campaign worked, we typically survey or interview people who were exposed to it. What they tell us can be subject to self-presentation bias, recall error, or misunderstanding of the question. All of these can make it hard to obtain reliable and valid measures of the impact of the campaign. With these challenges in mind, the evaluation plan should give attention to possible research designs, when the evaluation should be and can be done, what level of evidence is required to show success at achieving expected outcomes, whether and what data are actually available for you to use, and how process evaluation can be used to show progress towards expected outcomes. So that brings us to the end of stage 1 planning. You recall that the health communication process has 4 stages, so we have 3 more to go. But for now, you can be pleased with your excellent progress through stage 1. And as always, I want to remind you that these mini lectures are no substitute for doing the reading yourself. To succeed in this course, You must do all the readings carefully and completely. You can't rely on these little slideshows to get you through the course. And please keep in mind that I'm always here to answer questions that arise. Any concerns that you might have, you can talk to me. Online courses can be challenging, but you should never feel like you have to struggle through this one alone. Reach out to me or to our TA. We're happy to support you. So that's it. Bye for now.